NBC and TSN analyst Pierre McGuire joining me from Vegas, where the Vegas Golden Knights will host the Minnesota Wild. And what I think is going to be a pretty damn good series. A lot of people giving it to Vegas right away, but I don't think that's the way to go. I think Minnesota is going to give them a great series. But Pierre, how you doing? How was the flight out?
Everything's great, Jimmy. The flight was painless and getting ready for another long playoff run here. Very exciting time of the year for everybody involved in the National Hockey League, the fans, the players, the coaches, the trainers, the broadcasters. It's an awesome time of the year.
And Pierre, I was talking to a couple of the Bruins players yesterday and then again today, asking them if a year ago, when they were prepping to go into the bubble and then got there, went through what they went through, if they could ever envision things getting as close to normal as we're starting to get. And I guess, what's your take on that? And how excited are you about sort of having that normal feeling back a bit?
Well, it's really exciting, first of all, to have fans back in the building. In most of the arenas, obviously in Canada, they don't. But in the United States, I've done a lot of games in a lot of different cities, Jimmy, and it's really neat to have the fans back. So I'm excited for the fans and for the players, because the fans' noise and participation in the game really matters. And the players thrive in those kinds of environments. So I think that's great. I also think it is getting more back to normal around society. I was used to flying on planes that were half full. Now they're jammed to the gills. Checked into the hotel today in Vegas. Usually we stay at one property. It's sold out. So we're at the sister property of this hotel, and that's sold out, but we were fortunate enough to get rooms. So people are starting to travel. Things are returning back to normal. And I know by June the 1st, they're hoping to have 100% occupancy in the arena here in Vegas, which would be really exciting.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. Well, you know what? Let's dive into that series quick, and then we'll get over towards my way to the Bruins Capitals. Pierre, your take on this series, like I said before, a lot of people kind of writing the Wild off. I don't know why, right from the get-go. I got a feeling they can not only make it a series, I think they could pull off an upset. Am I nuts?
No, you're not nuts at all. I think Vegas is very concerned. The truth of the matter is they had the best defensive record in the league with Robin Leonard, Marc-Andre Fleury playing goal, and they've got such a stout and mobile defense. They're great. But one thing Minnesota Wild does to them that frustrates them is they forecheck very well, and it takes a little bit of the skill out of the Vegas defense. It's not as easy a transition game for them, and that's when they really thrive. So that's something to look for in this series. But Vegas on paper should be the favorite. Minnesota should be the underdog, but in the season series, Minnesota beat Vegas in the season series. So it's, again, going to be interesting to watch. But I would say the biggest thing for Minnesota, if they can establish their forecheck, I think Vegas is going to have a hard time. If Vegas can break the Minnesota forecheck, then I think Vegas is going to have a good time winning. And
I don't know, usually we'll say, this isn't your father's Minnesota Wild. I don't know what would say about that. What the maybe my aunt, I don't know, but like the Minnesota Wild haven't been around that long. But for the time they have been along, Pierre, I've kind of thought of them more as a defensive team, so to speak. I don't think offense when I hear the Minnesota Wild for so many years, but now they've got some quick strike offensive players that can change a game in a hurry, huh?
Yeah, including Kirill Kaprizov, I should say, who's been outstanding. Well, part of that defensive awareness came from Jacques Lemaire, their first coach, who was such an awesome coach and did a great job. I remember doing the 2003 Western Conference Final between Anaheim and Minnesota. Jacques Lemaire got them to the conference final. I mean, that's in 2003. Yep. That's just after their birth in the league. So he did an amazing job there. But no, it worked for them for a long time, but now they do have offensive capabilities. Probably Joel Eriksson-Ek might be the most improved forward in the NHL. Jonas Brodin is one of the top underrated defensemen in the National Hockey League. He had an awesome season. You go around their lineup and you can see offense sputtered all around it, which is a real good thing for them. And their coach, Dean Evison, coaches that way, Jimmy, to be honest.
I hear you. And I think, he should be, I don't know if he's top 3, but he's definitely top 5 for me for the Jack Adams. He's done an amazing job there. So credit to him. Pierre, let's go east here to the series that I'm about to start. Well, I'm already covering, been writing all day, but it's about to start tonight, 7:15 on the big network on NBC. The Washington Capitals hosting the Boston Bruins. I think this is going to be a war. I don't think minimum 6 games to me. I really feel a 7-game series here. But I got to say, whereas maybe a month ago, I would have given the edge to the Capitals, I'm leaning the other way now with the way the Bruins played down the stretch and with the balance that they have throughout their lineup.
Yeah, and you also have to worry about the health of the Washington Capitals. They have been a team that's been hurt by injury. They've been hit hard by COVID. They've had different times during this entire 56 game schedule where different players have been hit with COVID. So you don't know what that does to a player or what it does to a team or to the rhythm of a team. They've got two very inexperienced goalies. Neither one of them have played an NHL playoff game. So that's something to pay attention to. Boston has really played well. The acquisition of Taylor Hall, the acquisition of Curtis Lazar has made a big difference. The perfection line really is the perfection line. Brad Marchand should be up for a ton of different awards, Jimmy. I mean, starting with the Selke, you could even have him in the Hart Trophy conversation. Patrice Bergeron can be in the Selke Trophy conversation, the Lady Byng conversation. I mean, you got a lot of good stuff going on there in Boston right now, a lot of good stuff.
And, one thing I like right now that Bruce Cassidy has found here down the stretch is something that we've seen, I'll date back to 10 years ago when the Bruins won the cup. I don't think they do it without their third line. What was it? Chris Kelly, Rich Peverly, and Michael Ryder. The Bruins have a very balanced third line now. And that sort of could be, to me, an X factor there, because we all know how good the top six is playing right now. But if they can start to generate a little more offense on the third line there, the depth gets even better.
I agree with you 100%. I know one thing, you can't win the cup unless you got elite depth players. And I'll use a case in point from last year with Tampa. When they got Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman, it changed the whole dynamic of their team, Jimmy. And they were able to move Yanni Gourde from wing to center, and he centered Coleman and Goodrow. And I did all the games out west in Edmonton. And I can tell you right now, after they left the Toronto bubble, they were in fuego. They couldn't be stopped, that threesome. So if you don't have depth players and you don't have depth players participating at a high level, your chance of winning the cup are not very good.
And geez, if Jake DeBrusk could ever find his game again, you got him on the fourth line there. So you could see some offense coming there. And then the defense, Pierre, I think the acquisition, Mike Riley, has been really good there. Very underrated acquisition, I think. And they seem now they're healthy. They're finding some chemistry and cohesiveness out there. What's been your take on their six defensemen there?
Well, I like the fact that Grzelcyk and McGuire are together, two guys who played together at BU. I like them very much. It's the fact that Brandon Carlo's come back from two different injury situations and starting to look more and more comfortable. That helps. You're right about the acquisition of Riley. He's a big body who can really skate and move the puck. Defensively, sometimes he'll make some mistakes that'll frustrate you, but by and large, he's a very competent player. To me, the biggest thing, though, was the return of Kevin Miller, not just to the ice, but what he means to the team. He's a really popular guy because of how hard he's worked. All the players know what he's gone through with his knees and his lower body injuries. And I think the biggest thing with him is when you watch him play, the energy that he brings to Bruins, and other teams do not tread as easily when he's on the ice, if you know what I mean, Jimmy. So I would say that the defense actually looks really solid for them right now. I didn't think it would be as good as it is just because you lose Chara and you lose Krug. But getting Carlo back and McAvoy taking another step and Grzelcyk going up in the batting order has really helped them. Yeah,
you bring up Kevin Miller there too. And I'll tell you, Pierre, I mean, I think they win that game 7 against St. Louis 2 years ago if Kevin Miller's in the lineup, or win that series in general. Just the way St. Louis, and again, even last year with Tampa too, the way that their forwards would have their way with the Bruins defensemen in front. I don't see that happening as much now. And that's going to be huge against a big team like the Washington Capitals, right?
Really well said by you, Jimmy, and I would agree with you. You know, the thing that was amazing in that game 7, I did that game 7 with Doc Emmerich and Eddie Olchuk. And what I remember the most is Jordan Binnington's goal play the first 10 minutes for St. Louis. That game should have been 5-0 after 10 minutes. And Marchand's turnover in the neutral zone that led to the Pietrangelo goal. That was heartbreaking. And you could just feel the energy get sapped right out of the Bruins after that play. But yeah, you're right. Kevin Miller makes a big difference. There's no question he makes a big difference.
And between the pipes, Pierre, obviously everybody's been really amazed at the emergence of Jeremy Swayman, the rookie goalie there. Just been unreal, and such poise he shows out there. And the biggest thing I love about him is he's always smiling. Even when he gives up a goal, he's smiling. He's having fun. And I love that. And I think right now, you know, if something were to go wrong with Tuukka, whether it's an injury or a bad performance, I don't think Bruce Cassidy is too worried about going to the young kid right now.
No, and they shouldn't be. You know, the Bruins scouts have known about Jeremy Swayman for a while. They drafted him and they knew how he was developing to be named Hockey East Player of the Year a season ago in a league that had Spencer Knight in it and Trevor Zegras, both guys, you know, that have done very well so far in the NHL.
Yeah.
That says a lot about where Jeremy Swayman is as a player. And so I talked to the Bruins scouts a little bit, and they all have been high on him for a very long time. And I'm not surprised, when you really look at it, Jimmy, he's big, he's athletic, he's really fit. He's very unflappable, as you just correctly said, just the way he reacts after a goal goes in or after he makes a big save. So, no, I got to think Bruce Cassidy really comfortable with everything in the goal right now for Boston.
All right, Pierre. So given the big, the history of the season series the Bruins have had with the Capitals, I think the biggest name that everyone's been talking about nonstop, and I'm sure they will heading into this game and throughout the series, is Tom Wilson and the effect he can have on it. Now, Pierre, in my text when I asked you to come on here, I told you, it made me think back a little when I was starting to become a hockey fan and starting to go to the games with my grandfather at the old Garden, and you were coaching, assistant coach with the Pittsburgh Penguins there, 91 and 92, and the effect that Ulf Samuelsson could have, not only in just a game, but on a series. Do you see similarities in the effect that Tom Wilson has, and can he do that in this series, or has he maybe lost his way a bit after everything that happened there in the final couple of weeks?
No, I've seen him play a lot of playoff series. He can definitely affect the outcome of a series. And that's when players like Wagner, Charlie Coyle, they have to get really robust. They got to get physical. They got to get, and you can't let Marchand do it, and you can't have Bergeron do it, and you don't want your defenseman doing it. So, if they're going to do that, you got to have your guys prepared to do it to their guys, and not. Listen, if the Bruins could get Tommy Wilson, they would get him. You know what I mean, Jimmy?
Any team would.
Any team in the league would.
Yeah.
So he's a power forward. Now, the difference is when I was coaching Alfie really could dictate the terms of a series because he was fearless, number one. Number two, he was physical as all get out. And number three, he had really good hockey sense. He had amazing sense. Hitting in open ice is an art form. It really is. More times than not, when you see guys do it very frequently, it's because they understand the game and they understand angling. And Alfie really understood that part of it. And so, yes, he definitely affected series that I coached in, whether it was the 92 final, the Eastern final in 92, the first round in 91 and 92. Yep. Alfie played a role in a lot of series. He really did. And I think Tom Wilson can too, but the Bruins can stabilize him. The biggest thing to me is don't get caught up in all the stuff after the whistles. Play 5-on-5, force them to take penalties. Don't let Washington get on the power play.
Yeah, and that's what the great segue there. I was just going to lead to it. Look, my dad used to always tell me, get the last laugh, not the last punch. That's always, and you can put that in right now in this hockey game and in this series. And we've seen it a couple times since the whole Carlo hit, where the Bruins have kind of baited him a little and kind of turned it around on him. And he's bit. He at times he's taken some bad penalties. So, I think that's going to be the mentality there. Like, look, this guy's a truck. We know that. We know what he can do out there. But at the same time, we can't let him dictate the terms. And I think you're right. I think the Bruins do have the discipline to do that, eh?
There's no question, Jimmy. I really believe they do. I liked what you just said about the discipline part of it, because that's a big part of playoff hockey. The teams that are the most undisciplined don't last very long. The teams that are the most disciplined usually last longer, as long as they get goaltending and they score enough goals. But you've got to be disciplined. If you're not disciplined, then you're hurting your team and you're hurting yourself. And I think, again, Tommy Wilson understands how to play his role. He also knows he's under the microscope. It's a lot like Brad in Boston, Brad Marchand. He knows he's being watched all the time. So he's got to stay out of the shenanigans. I think Brad Marchand this year has had, if it weren't for Connor McDavid, I'm being totally serious now, he could definitely be in the Hart Trophy conversation, Brad Marchand this year. Yeah. He's been that good. He really has been.
They maybe should give up a Hart Trophy A just to Connor and then do a B, right?
I voted on the awards. I did all my award voting yesterday. And when you do the statistical breakdowns on all the players, that are eligible for the awards, and you see just how dominant McDavid's been this year, it's intimidating. It really, truly is. And you know what? I think it hurts Leon Draisaitl because I think most people say Draisaitl's good, but if you didn't have McDavid, how good would he be?
Right.
And when you look at how dominant McDavid's been, you're just like, whoa, this guy's been unbelievable.
It's insane. It's funny you bring up Marchand too there, because I was thinking about that as we were talking about Wilson. And, you go back, what is it? Was it 2018 when he had the licking incidents there? Yeah. And I just remember that press conference he had afterwards and how embarrassed he was and how much you could tell he knew he let his team down. And he's been different since, and he deserves a lot of credit for really reeling himself in. I know the Bruins tried to do it, but when it came down to it, it was him that had to do it. And I'm wondering, not that Brad Marchand wants to help Tom Wilson anyway, but could Wilson kind of take a flyer from that to just kind of do some self-evaluating and say, look, Pierre, I'm convinced this guy could be the Cam Neely of this generation if he got his act together.
Oh, no question. That's a very apt comparison too, because he plays with a center iceman and Nick Backstrom sometimes that's very similar to Adam Oates.
Yeah.
The only difference is Oates was a right-hand shot and Backstrom's a left-hand shot. But outside of that, there's a lot of similarities. And I tell you what, I had to draw up game plans to try to shut down Cam Neely and Adam Oates, and it wasn't easy to do. And we knew every time we played Boston, whether it was a regular season or the playoffs, just how great those two guys were in particular, and obviously Raymond Bourque on the back end. But if you don't have a plan to play against Tom Wilson and Ovechkin, those are two huge men. Yes. You have to have a plan for both of those men. And if you don't, it's going to be a problem for you. And I'm sure the Bruins have a plan.
For sure. Well, we'll see how it goes. I got the Bruins in 6, Pierre, is my prediction. I don't know you're into predictions, so I won't ask you. But just before quickly for some of our other fans out there that maybe haven't watched the whole league as closely because they've been stuck watching East Division so much, any teams that you'd suggest keep an eye on that maybe they don't know enough about?
Florida Panthers, look out for them. They could be very dangerous this playoff season. They've added a whole lot of intestinal fortitude in terms of physicality. And it started with Patrick Hornquist and it just kept going. They're really Sammy Bennett coming down from Calgary.
Yeah.
Marcus Nudivara coming in from Columbus. And I tell you what, Mackenzie Weegar is one of the most improved players in the league. He's been amazing on defense, plus 29 this year, 206th in his draft year in 2013. It's amazing to see where he is. Florida's very legitimate. I think Minnesota's got a chance to really put a scare into Vegas. We'll see whether that holds true or not. And out west, Edmonton is starting to roll, and they play Winnipeg in the first round. And if they ended up playing Toronto in the second round, that would be a heck of a series. So I would say Edmonton in the North Division. I'd say Minnesota in the West Division. In the Central, I'd watch Florida. And in the East, everybody.
Yep, exactly. Well, listen, Pierre, thanks. I know you're a busy man. I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll talk to you down the line, eh?
Never too busy for you, Jimmy. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thanks so much, Pierre.